The Pittsburgh Steelers almost had a boring week, you got to say. They changed coordinators. They won. Things are good. Life is enjoyable. Outside of a wide receiver incident that just isn't going to go away. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/allsteelerstalkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they get ready for the Arizona Cardinals. They're 7-4. They're in second place in the AFC North. Matt Canada is gone. Eddie Faulkner and Mike Sullivan break a 58-game streak of 400 less yards. Life is good. The Pittsburgh Steelers, minimal complaints. This is the road upward. This is the beginning of a new day, right? Outside of Diontae Johnson. And that is the hottest topic of conversation, the hottest topic of conversation for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. It is the only thing and anything anybody wants to complain about, which is good, I think. If you're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers in the grand scheme of things and your only takeaway is, man, there is a lazy wide receiver who let the emotions get the best of him, and yeah, maybe there's some issues there, that's big. Because a week ago it was the offensive coordinator, the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, probably a change at running back. The entire offensive line stunk, and the defense, well, they were getting too old to deal with it for the rest of the year, and things were starting to crash, and, well, they've come a long way. But let's dive into Diontae Johnson, because that is significant. It is important. It's not something that you ignore. And honestly, Mike Tomlins' response to it kind of means that the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't ignoring it. Just to recap, if anybody didn't see, Diontae Johnson was caught by TV cameras being a little lethargic on the field. The play before, he catches a pass, drops it in the end zone. Probably should have been ruled a touchdown, did get 3 steps down. Either way, they call it incomplete. Mike Tomlin and company choose not to challenge the play. The next play, Jaylen Warren gets the football, runs to Diontae Johnson's side, fumbles the football. In the midst of this, the cameras catch Diontae Johnson not trying to block anybody, and then totally ignoring the fumble as Cincinnati Bengals players pick it up and run away. And Diontae's just standing there looking sad. It was a bad moment. Afterwards, he said that he didn't see it. He was, quote unquote, blocking or whatever, which was not the best quote. I have to admit, it was not the perfect response to get people off your back in this situation. But granted, he probably didn't see the replay as many times as everybody who asked him about it or who is drilling him about it currently saw the replay during the game. That being said, Mike Tomlin addressed the situation. This is what he had to say about Diontae having to own it.
You know, we got to take care of the ball. It is our desire, is how we construct victory. And so Jalen's got to do a better job there. Diontae can't let the emotions of the previous down affect his next down. But I'll give him an opportunity to address that with you guys. I'll give him an opportunity to address that with his teammates. I'm not going to add any additional color. I think plays like that are best described and outlined by those involved, and less so by guys like me. I keep my attention on challenging things that await us this week. Schematic preparation for Arizona and the readiness of this group. It's something that he needs to answer for, and so I'll give him an opportunity to do that. His teammates will give him an opportunity to do that, and I won't provide any color until he does.
There are 2 things here that I really like. The first one, Mike Tomlin admitting that Diontae Johnson has to own this situation, that it wasn't pretty. He can't let the emotions of the last play affect his current play, which is my biggest takeaway from this entire thing. I do not care that he didn't see the fumble. I honestly believe that he had no idea that the ball was on the ground. My bigger issue is that he totally gave up on that play because he was mad about the play before. And that, in the ultimate team sport, is not a team attitude. And a week ago, Najee Harris was sitting around and asked, does everybody in this locker room have a team-first mentality? And he refused to answer. And now everybody's going to point fingers at Diontae Johnson. It's not where you want to be. It's not the look that you want to have. The second part of this is that he's letting it go and letting Diontae handle it with his teammates, which I think is very important. Diontae Johnson is a leader in that locker room, and that has to be understood. The way I stand with Diontae Johnson, the way I view Diontae Johnson is I think I've defended Diontae Johnson and supported the Steelers wide receiver more than most. I am a Diontae Johnson apologist. I have to admit it. But in this situation, it's really hard to sit around and defend a guy who clearly did not care about a play that close to the end zone that was coming his direction. Not a good look. And he can't defend it. And Mike Tomlin choosing not to defend it was significant. That's huge. That's a big moment for the Pittsburgh Steelers, for Diontae Johnson, and for Mike Tomlin, because in the past, I mean, you could just imagine what he would say, but it would be something along the lines of, yeah, you know, we've addressed it, or we won't address it, or yeah, I'm only focused on the big picture. It would be some way around the answer. This was pretty straightforward. He does have to address it. He probably doesn't have to address it with the media, but he's got to address it with his teammates, and he should address it with his teammates. But again, let's go back to Diontae Johnson and this situation. I have defended Diontae Johnson through and through. I have been an apologist of this guy. I have been a big supporter of his talent and his leadership, and that's where I stand with him. I believe that Diontae Johnson is a crucial part of the Pittsburgh Steelers locker room because he is a leader, but at the same time, he is a diva wide receiver. And that is a very fine line to walk on. You do a really good job. He does a really, really good job of directing younger guys on how to handle themselves in the NFL. He does a really good job of keeping guys together when he is not the person that took the L. When he is not the person who is involved in the incident. At the same time, he finds himself constantly being the one involved in the incident. And that is a really tough spot to be in because you're fantastic. Diontae Johnson is one of the best in the locker room at being a leader and one of the worst in the locker room at staying out of headlines for negative reasons. And that is a poor leadership quality. And that's what Diontae Johnson is right now. Do I think he could improve? Certainly. I think the big thing here is that he is a wide receiver, and the stereotype is terrible, but it's so true, man. Diontae Johnson is part of a group of wide receivers that is really good at football, that causes drama, that complains a lot, and that gets caught in the worst moments on a field, because if you're a running back, you could not care if you run for 2 yards. You got to get back in the huddle and do it again. If you're a quarterback, you cannot care that you threw an interception. You got to get back on the field and do it again. If you're an offensive lineman, all you're constantly doing is getting hit and blown up and having to ignore it. Defense as well. Wide receiver is the only position on the field where if things are not going great, you are allowed to express that, and you're going to get caught by either a television camera or a reporter or a fan or social media somewhere doing something. It's the worst position in football when it comes to trying to be a leader, because they also get away, well, not get away, but feel as if they can get away with everything. And that's a really fine line to walk. Do I think the Pittsburgh Steelers look at this as a serious matter? No. Do I think that behind closed doors, things were said from Mike Tomlin to Diontae Johnson? Of course. I don't think that Mike Tomlin is the same guy that will blast you in film reviews. Like, I'm talking blast you in front of everybody on the team, right on the big board, and just go to town on how bad your performance was. He's done it before. I mean, Kendrick Green has horror stories in Pittsburgh of times, and Kevin Dotson too, of times that Mike Tomlin just pulled up a play where they did something wrong and just went off. And if you expect that Diontae Johnson isn't going to get reamed out for this some way or another, I mean, you have to expect it. You have to expect that behind closed doors, Mike Tomlin is going to get this situated and taken care of. Do I expect it to happen again? Probably. That's just the life cycle of an NFL wide receiver, seemingly. But it's not an issue that'll just be ignored, which is important. The other serious question here is, where do you go from here? If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and everybody wants to bring this up, Diontae Johnson only has $5 million in dead money next year. And everybody wants to talk about, well, is it time to finally move on? Do you trade him? I mean, he's been the name to trade for a long time. I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers have any thoughts of moving on from this guy, but I will say that free agency and the NFL draft may sway their decision one way or another. Depending on how things look, I'm just going to say that Diontae Johnson and this offense are really, really good, but he's not a player who could afford to constantly be a negative headline for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Mike Tomlin may be ignoring that. Mike Tomlin might not see that, but Art Rooney is, and Omar Khan is. And those guys, I mean, the Matt Canada decision just tells you everything you need to know. Art Rooney will make moves if he needs to make moves. He will get involved and persuade things if he needs to get involved and persuade things. And he wants a well-run football team with no major issues. And he wants to get rid of this negative backlash that always constantly revolves around his team anymore. Diontae Johnson is negative backlash right now. And I do think he fixes it. And again, I'm a big Diontae Johnson fan. I'm a big Diontae Johnson supporter. I think that this goes away and that this is a non-issue in a couple of weeks. And, you know, he has the right things to say to his teammates. I really, truly do believe all of that. But I also worry that it's not going to end and that more things are going to come up. And how many more things come up before somebody just has enough of it and it's time to move on?